You're a loser if you don't have any friends. If you don't talk to people for a long time, you'll become a retard. I know for a fact that there's a lot of us feeling lonely out there, and this collective feeling of loneliness will be increasing drastically in future. And I want to take this opportunity to talk about embracing your own company in the best possible way. This video will be information packed, and I want you to sit close and listen carefully to really understand the gist of loneliness and how being on your own can favor you in your life. Because in my opinion, loneliness is a door to excellence, and I will explain later on what I mean. School of Life Alain de Botton provides a great content, and this video is not an exception. Let's dive into it.
There are few more shameful confessions to make than that we are lonely. The basic assumption is that no respectable person could ever feel isolated, unless maybe they'd just moved country or been widowed. Yet in truth, a high degree of loneliness is an inexorable part of being a sensitive, intelligent human. It's a built-in feature of a complex existence. There are several big reasons for this.
Whether we want it or not, our very developed minds will inevitably eventually lead us to this conclusion that we feel lonely and nobody understands us. As you grow up and become an adult and people dissipate from your life, you get your own moment to ponder about these existential queries, and there's nothing greater in your personal growth journey than to question every single thing.
Much of what we need recognized and confirmed by others, a lot of what it would be extremely comforting to share, is going to be disturbing to society at large. Many of the ideas in the recesses of our minds are too odd, contrary, subtle, or alarming to be safely revealed to anyone else. We face a choice between honesty and acceptability, and, understandably, mostly choose the latter.
Truth be told, the fear of loneliness is more excruciating than the loneliness itself. We try to avoid it at any cost, and in the process of doing that, we lose our own identity. And when I say identity, I don't mean external adjectives, like how people describe you. I mean your own inner deep self. And when you choose acceptability, when you choose politically correct way of socializing with others, you lose the truth, you lose the honesty, which makes it unbearable to coexist with others. You start to feel lonely in crowded places. And that is exactly why platforms like YouTube grow immensely for every year. People come here in a search for authenticity, in a search for people to connect with. Tragic state really, connecting more in digital space than in real life.
It takes a lot of energy to listen to another person and enter sympathetically into their experiences. We shouldn't blame others for their failure to focus on who we are. They may want to meet us, but we should accept the energy with which they will keep the topic of their own lives at the center of the conversation.
One crucial thing the general masses don't fathom is that we people are social creatures. For a reason. There's always a gain for us when we come together. We are symbiotic creatures. We come together not just because of the Hollywood fantasies of being together and sharing moments and laughing and crying. No, that's not the reason. The reason is survival. That is exactly how we've gotten to this place. Through highly intelligent cooperation and strategic expansion to new territories and exploitation of environment. One person is worth jack shit. Like ants, but with bigger brains and highly abstract thinking. So when you are feeling lonely, it's not because no one likes you. It's precisely because you're not creating any value to your community. You want attention without any sacrifice. You won't give anything back, but you are eager to claim attention whenever you get the chance. And people recognize that. Subconsciously or consciously, you will end up feeling lonely when there's no exchange between you and your peers.
We must all die alone, which really means that our pain is for us alone to endure. Others can throw us words of encouragement, but in every life, we are out on the ocean, drowning in the swell, and others, even the nice ones, are standing on the shore, waving cheerily.
This particular thing about friendships and being with people is a very romanticized picture of how human beings are. I have a video on friendships. I will put it at the end of this video. But basically, friends come and go dependent when you're in your own personal journey. You find someone that you march along with because you're reflecting each other's personalities. You're confirming each other's biases. But the moment those fall off, your paths get separated.
It's deeply unlikely that we will ever find someone on exactly the same page of the soul as us. We will long for utter congruity, but there will be constant dissonance because we appeared on the earth at different times, are the product of different families and experiences, and are just not made of quite the same fabric. We will almost certainly never meet the people best qualified to understand us. But they do exist. Probably they once walked past us in the street, though neither of us had the slightest idea of the potential for connection.
Finding people to connect with and thinking that you will be friends for the rest of your life is like having this soulmate myth, that there's a one person on this earth walking around being a perfect match just for you. Nothing but a fantasy. You are being egocentric. You are being greedy. You are being irrational. People are fed stories because emotions make them feel good, regardless if they're pleasant or unpleasant. Especially today, emotionality has become a religion. Everyone wants to feel something. Less and less people want to think rationally. When your emotions are out of order, you won't be facing anything but catastrophe. The life won't make a sense unless you master your emotions.
Or maybe they died in Sydney 2 weeks ago, or won't be born until the 22nd century. It isn't a conspiracy. We would just have needed a lot more luck. The problem is sure to get worse the more thoughtful and perceptive we are. There will simply be less people like us around. It isn't a romantic myth. Loneliness truly is a kind of tax we have to pay to atone for a certain complexity of mind.
Just so you know, there's quite a danger in spending too much time on your own. As you get to know yourself more, you become highly picky with whom you choose to spend your time with, on whom you choose to spend your energy. You will start getting standards. You will start to demand a respect because you have personal experiences and you want your company to meet those standards. And as your wisdom arises, as your intelligence arises, the pool of compatibility within your peers will shrink tremendously.
The desire to undress someone is for a long time far more urgent than the desire for good conversation. And so we end up locked in relationships with certain people we don't have much to say to because we were once fatefully interested in the shape of their nose or the color of their remarkable eyes.
I'm laughing because I experienced almost everything he's saying. I mean, our biological nature is a driving force in our existence. Procreation is number one on our priority list after physiological needs are met. Eating, sleeping, etc. So you get with someone once or twice, at least as a man. And when you realize that there's no connection, the person might be boring or dull, have zero passion or interest, so you skedaddle. You split the paths. At the end of the day, you won't bear a person unless there's some kind of a resonance in between you.
And yet, despite all this, we shouldn't be frightened or discomforted by our pervasive loneliness. At an exasperated moment, near the end of his life, the German writer Goethe, who appeared to have had a lot of friends, exploded bitterly,
"No one has ever properly understood me. I have never fully understood anyone. No one understands anyone else."
This is also a type of egocentric, inflated self-evaluating. We always crave this deep connection and people understanding who we are. But truth be told, no one can know your experiences unless they are you, which is physically impossible. There are so many complexities and small nuances within a person. It's even metaphysically impossible to recreate that. So what you should do instead is to enjoy the company, cherish it as long as it lasts. Because relationships are all about personal growth. You teach something, you get taught something, you march along the same path, you go separate ways, and the process repeats itself with other people entering your life.
It was a helpful outburst from such a great man. It isn't our fault. A degree of distance and mutual incomprehension isn't a sign that life has gone wrong. It's what we should expect from the very start. And when we do, benefits can follow.
This is a crucial point. Let's discuss what you can do instead and how to tackle this feeling of loneliness.
Once we accept loneliness, we can get creative. We can start to send out messages in a bottle. We can sing, write poetry, produce books and blogs, activities stemming from the realization that people around us won't ever fully get us, but that others, separated across time and space, might just.
And this is what I meant by loneliness being the door to excellence. Creativity stems from your deeper inner self. And to explore that, to find it, you have to spend time on your own. Creativity is a feeling. It is born from stillness, from out of nowhere. When nothing is bothering you, you're accepting the moment, you're enjoying it as it is, which results in creativity, the ultimate proclamation of love for life. You celebrate it by creating something, or more probably letting the creative energy flow through you. Think about all genius artists. Many of them were suffering with loneliness. It was their own subjective way of philosophizing about life.
The history of art is the record of people who couldn't find anyone in the vicinity to talk to. And we can take up the coded offer of intimacy in, say, the words of a Roman poet who died in 10 BC, or the lyrics of a singer who described just our blues in a recording from Nashville in 1963.
This is a paradoxical experience that I felt in myself because I've seen videos about other people preaching social life and living in accordance with people. Otherwise, you will lose your sense of tactfulness, sense of sociability. It's like if you don't talk to people for a long time, you'll become a retard, which is not true. Socializing is like riding a bike. You'll be able to get back on track even after a long hiatus. But the trick here is the more you get to know yourself, the more authentic you will be with people. You will understand their feelings, their needs. You will understand how to push certain buttons to make them feel good because you know what works for you. And we people are made of the same cloth, generally speaking, of course, from the same fabric of universe. And getting to know yourself will ultimately result in making you a pleasant company.
Loneliness makes us more capable of true intimacy if ever better opportunities do come along. It heightens the conversations we have with ourselves. It gives us a character. We don't repeat what everyone else thinks. We develop a point of view. We might be isolated for now, but we'll be capable of far closer, more interesting bonds with anyone we do eventually locate.
So whenever you get with someone, doesn't matter if it's a new friend or a partner, you will be as truthful, as genuine, as authentic as possible, which will make that person to become dazzled by you.
Loneliness renders us elegant and strangely alluring. It suggests there's more about us to understand than the normal patterns of social intercourse can accommodate, which is something we can take pride in. A sense of isolation truly is, as we suspect but usually prevent ourselves from feeling from fear of arrogance, a sign of depth.
You can drop the mic here. The more time you spend on your own, the deeper you go in getting to know your character. Think about the letter T. The cap of the letter represents shallow bonds, whereas the shaft represents your depth. The deeper you go, the more enticing as a person you will become. More interesting, more empathic, more intelligent. Quite a catch.
When we admit our loneliness, we are signing up to a club that includes the people we know from the paintings of Edward Hopper, the poems of Baudelaire, and the songs of Leonard Cohen. Lonely, we enter a long and grand tradition. We find ourselves, surprisingly, in great company.
So as you see, as I mentioned before, many artists, musicians, filmmakers, painters have experienced loneliness in some way. Loneliness also includes rejection. Rejection from life, feeling like a freak, like an outsider. So transcend your energy into creativity and make something useful of it. Instead of dwelling, instead of gloating, instead of wallowing in misery, becoming productive in a way that makes you more happy, more content, giving you some sort of peace of mind.
Enduring loneliness is almost invariably better than suffering the compromises of false community. Loneliness is simply a price we may have to pay for holding on to a sincere, ambitious view of what companionship must and could be.
So instead of living a lie that you're a loser if you don't have any friends, or that there's a one for you, you must be a terrible person if you don't have any social circle, listen to your inner voice. As I mentioned before, the reason why you are feeling lonely is because as of now you're feeling very shallow, you don't realize your own potential, so when you're confused about your own self, people won't resonate with your persona. Embrace the loneliness. Understand your own needs and wishes, your ambitions, what you want to do in this life, what kind of a legacy you want to leave behind, and as you build yourself up, the people will come. And yes, if you build it, they will come. If you are interested in more philosophical topics and understand the falsehoods that we have been programmed for, watch one of these videos. What are the lessons that loneliness have taught you? Tell me in the comments. But for now, Hossein, out.